live.
My name is Abina Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, Mount Nimba to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey, in diaspora, foreign affairs, hey, reliable information, history, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment. Business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition, we will be focusing on the Rice Committee that was set up by President Joseph Newman Boakai. We'll also look at new appointments in government, and those appointments include the appointment of the Director General of EPA. That's Dr. Yuri Yakpawuro, Dr. Emmanuel Yakpawuro, and the 16 AD camps around the country for each of those counties. We're going to explore that. And this whole thing of yellow machine or earth moving equipment, we're going to talk about that too. Let me welcome our governor's advisor, Mr. Atman Salif, who's joining us from Monrovia. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's do it.
You look so relaxed in Monrovia and shiny.
That's the place to be.
Yeah, man. Who's to say people in Monrovia don't shine? You ought to be here to see. You know, it's good to be home.
Great, man. I'm coming soon. Superintendent job or no superintendent job, I'm coming. Let me welcome our public financial management guy, Mr. Thomas B. Kanner, who's joining us this time from Minnesota. Welcome, sir.
Great to be here. Ahmed is in Monrovia, so I had to come to replace him.
All right, that's good. Let me welcome Attorney Wanda Konyene Freeman. Mr. Freeman, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Good to be here.
Last and definitely not the least is our colleague from Waplo Institute, FOL political analyst, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. It's always good to be here.
Dr. Dukley will be joining us shortly. Let me welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Thursday, and it's time to talk tough. Gentlemen, again, welcome. We're glad to be here to talk tough on these issues that are of concern. And Mr. Salif, how is Monrovia? Let me start with that. Let me see how you're doing, and if there's room for me to come now and take off my title as superintendent of Sino.
You should come, man. They're thinking about really turning the superintendent thing into a real thing. I think, this is the right time to be here. I've been observing. I came here on a sort of a professional assignment So that tells you that the government seems to be really thinking in the right direction. I hope, based on my observation, folks are trying to get things moving. I mean, the challenges are there, very palpable. The economy, you can see they're still struggling. The ordinary people, poverty is very pervasive. If you go to communities, talk to local people, as I do, and just really sit outside and eat peanuts with folks and just chat, and you get to hear stories, the real things that are happening in the country, but also rub shoulder with the power that be, people who are running the system, and then get a perspective. What are they thinking in terms of policy directions for the country? What is the vision, and what are they doing to activate on the vision, and what's happening generally with the economy. So yeah, those mean it's also a dual purpose research assignment, just doing some personal research work here. As I do that, I take note and observe and talk to folks. The country needs a lot of help, but I think people have their hearts in the right places.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dukley was there a week or two ago, and when he came back, he wrote his random thoughts about things there. So when you come back, we expect to hear from you as well. Well, one of the issues that have been happening in Monrovia is this issue of earth moving equipment, yellow machines, as they call it, 285. So during the cabinet retreat, the deputy minister for state without portfolio, Mrs. Mamaka Belete, made the announcement. Let me play a snippet of what she said.
Minister Crispy, Minister Geddes, and myself attended a virtual turnover of 285 earth-moving equipment a few weeks ago. The purpose of this equipment is to bring the president's vision of no car will get stuck in modern life and bring back the maintenance zone. For those of us over 40, for those of us over 40, we remember the maintenance zone when you used to have the public work yard. I remember the one in Kanta. You will have the public work yard and they have all the equipment there. So when there are problems, the public work officials will go, or the public work engineers will go and fix the road. So it's the president's vision that he wants to bring the maintenance zones back. So when we were younger in this country, people used to go to Maryland and come.
That was the Minister of State without portfolio announcing that, and she said those things are on the ship. They've already been packed. They attended that virtual turnover, so those machines are being shipped. Also, at that, President Bouaka responded.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the president wanted to visit.
I think we can talk about agriculture all day. But you have to get there. You have to be able to go there. We have rich soil, but they're not accessible. These machines, they even proposed they wanted to put my photo on there. I said, no, just put the thing Liberia, love Liberian.
President Bouaka responding, and yesterday, on Tuesday, during the MICAT press briefing, the minister, Jeremic Pia, said, really, what's going on here? No decision has been reached, but take a listen.
So one of the things that happened at the retreat was that a presentation was made by the Minister of State before portfolio concerning works in progress to have earth-moving equipments that will be deployed across the 15 political subdivisions. So she made a presentation that didn't require any much time to give an update on this concept of making sure that we have these equipment available.
Wow.
Mr. Sharif, all you talk, all I want is the yellow machines. The yellow machines are coming. Are they not coming? What's going on here?
Yeah,
Dr.
absolutely.
Bukla, welcome. If you can flip your camera around to landscape view that. So there are
Absolutely.
a lot of things about this earth moving equipment.
Absolutely. So the yellow machines are arriving. Mamaka Duple is Mamaka ability. I'm sorry. Was correct, and in fact, the president was sitting there. When this statement was made. So you have the minister of information who comes back and contradicted his colleague. This is very unprofessional for the entire administration. Someone needs to, put these guys under control. Like there has to be an adult in the room to. There has to be an adult in the room to sort of, lay the rules, so to speak, because this is not good. The minister of information is saying that it wasn't well thought out. What do you mean it wasn't well thought out? When, in fact, this was never contradicted during the retreat. And let me tell you one thing, because my brother was telling me, told me that, this administration has been very, of course, my brother, has a different orientation as I do. But one of the things that he spoke to was that he said this administration has been very good to grant Jita. Keep in mind, my brother was born in Zoeju. So he says that, this administration has been very good to grant Jita. I said, tell me more. What do you mean by that? He said, now the roads are pliable again, when we were growing up. So there is, all kinds of constructions, going on as far as the roads are concerned. So all that talks about, the accusation of these machines, I care about, and the Liberian people, the average Liberians really care about whether they're going to have good roads, leading from Zoeju to Kikamas to Greenville to Ganta to Monrovia. That's what the Liberian people care about. Look, if you're trying to develop that country, you have to do something radically different. And I think that this administration, President Walker understands that you have to do something radically different. 176-year-old country, we're still talking about muddy mess all over the country that George Weah left behind. And so if the president is doing something about that, I have to welcome that, with open arms, and the Liberian people have to welcome that with open arms. All these different contradictions, all these different, power struggle is unnecessary. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I think that there's no need for the Ministry of Information. I mean, there's no need.
So Mr. Salim, Mr. Sharif, before I move on to the next, what do you believe is the truth about these yellow machines? Are they coming? Are they not coming? Is it being arranged? Because if you listen to the information minister, he said those machines were, and then he stopped. He didn't want to say rented, bought, procured. So what is it about this machine that you are hearing, or what is it
the
that
minister? So you look. So one of the things. So one of the things that's happening is that the minister of information, because he is the official spokesman of the government, as we term the minister of information to be. I mean, one of the roles, of course, is culture and tourism. Another is speaking for the government. So Mr. Pierre has been very active in terms of trying to consolidate all of the output of this information, and so I believe that because this information did not go through him, when Mamaka was announcing this, you could hear the exuberance in that room wherever they were. And so, I think this has to do with some sort of power struggle, and the president needs to come in real quickly and arrest this. So I will, in this situation, I will believe the minister of state without portfolio. It's something is going on, and it's power struggle, and it's very childish, for an administration that's trying to keep its promises to the Liberian people.
Thank you, Dr. Bugler. Welcome. We miss you. You were in Monrovia. I read your random thoughts, and I wanted you to speak a little bit about that at the beginning of the show. But we now, so briefly, maybe you heard something about the yellow machines while you were there.
Uh, I heard the same thing you heard. I saw the same video you saw, so I don't have any different comment. I think I agree with my brother there, Sharif. I think the problem is communication. If you forget about the whole thing, that's the whole hula hula. You look at the pictures, you look at the video. There was a clear intent to deceive people. If you line up machines and then you put pictures on the pictures of the president, either you bought them or you're in a discussion to buy them or you have advanced in purchasing them. It was an attempt to deceive people, and it was also an attempt to impress Buakai, to impress the president. I'm doing this. We're going to get it. So I think, and then as Mohammed said, the last thing that I would add is a communication snafu. You don't go to a cabinet meeting and present something like that when you don't have, the whole thing is, solidly packaged and say, this is what we're doing, this is how far we've gone, or we intend to look at these machines. And people will say, okay, how much they cost? Because, just the infrastructure to bring in 285 new machines from a company that does not exist in Liberia. So therefore, you have to import the parts, you have to import the mechanics, you have to import the maintenance process. 285 machines are not a small thing. I don't know what people are thinking about it. People think that you're talking about 100 bags of rice. No, you're talking about 285 heavy machines that cost at least $100,000 a piece. And knowing our record of maintenance, who's going to maintain them? So are we going to be the only client for this company? But anyway, I think it was a communication snafu. I think it was bad. I think it all falls on the Minister of State with that portfolio. That was, I think she should have run it by Pia, the Minister of Information, and say, we have this information. Should we release it? And he would say, what do you have? How far does it go before you release it? But,
Dr. Dukley, I want to tap into your experience here. Do you think that these machines, some people were even saying this will be President Bouakai Iboma. Do you think they are actually machines that have been negotiated and these machines are ready? Or is it because maybe the Senate, the legislators are coming and say, wait a minute, I mean, where's the money coming from? What was the process? Is it that, or really it's another Iboma?
I think it's not Bouakai Iboma. I think it's a Minister Abilities Iboma. I think, this is something that people did. You took pictures from the computer and then you put flags on them. This doesn't make sense. Bouakai would not go for something like that. Bouakai is not the kind of man who put his name on the on this kind. This is too many machines for a poor country that can't even meet his own payroll to buy a bunch of like that, to import them from China through South African consulting. No, I think it's Iboma in a way. People are still, you remember I always said it would take 6 months to be able to really gauge where the government is, where it's standing, its capacities, and all of that. These 100 days are, it's a snafu thing. But I think that's what is happening. People are trying to upset themselves. They're trying to show that they're capable. They're trying to take credit for things that they don't do or they want to do. And I think that's a problem. So that's a new government and new people.
Thank you. Anthony Konyene, with what you know about how things operate, what do you think is going on here?
Well, it speaks to the general nature of our governance systems, where we just don't believe in transparency and accountability. We have laws in the country. I always tell a joke, if somebody has good news for me or has $1,000, to give me, you can't pass through my window to give it to me. Neither can you jump over my fence. And if I see you jumping over the fence, you say, oh, I have $1,000 for you, or I have very good news for you. So the idea that somebody wants to fix roads or want to engage in agriculture and so they can violate the PPCC laws, violate the PFM laws, violate every other laws in the name of the fact that they are doing very good things for the country, it continues to contribute to part of the reason why we are very, very poor in Liberia and will continue to be so. We just passed a budget. Anything that you wanted to do for the fiscal year should be communicated in that budget. You cannot pass a budget while the budget is pending to be implemented and you start doing extra budgetary engagement, extra budgetary expenditure. But, generally the situation in Liberia is basically lawless. So people clap for those kinds of things, but in any civilized society, they wouldn't condone that. You can't leave the budget and start operating outside of the budget.
Maybe nothing has been bought yet. I don't think we are talking about budgeting.
No, but she presented in a cabinet meeting and said they were on its way. So if they were on its way, it's either it's been already contracted or the country has been obligated. Even to speak of it in a cabinet meeting without it passing through, you're talking about $10 million plus.
No,
to speak of it in a cabinet meeting without communicating that through the budget is wrong. It's flat out wrong. It's the same thing I'm saying. You say that you have very good news for Liberia. You're going to revitalize agriculture. You're going to fix all the roads. So you do something illegal in order to do the very good thing. Yeah, that's very bad. And that's part why the country remains poor.
Yeah, and the Minister of Information spoke to that. Say, we know we have laws and, kind of try to talk about that there are laws. So I was thinking, but let me bring in Thomas, Thomas, what you make of what's going on here? Is it should we expect 19 machines for each county coming very soon? I mean, I was doing the math. If we consider 6 counties in the south, if we have 114 of those machines, man, we're going to ball.
You want to sell them to Ivory Coast? I think they sell them to Ivory Coast, right?
We can say that.
Okay.
Thomas, what do you make of what's going on? Who's telling us the truth there?
You see, the issue with investing in our roads and agriculture, these are growth fundamentals. When you build them in the future, you will expect that the economy is going to grow. So I agree with everyone that is celebrating this news that we are going to get these earth-moving equipments and deploy them into our counties. This will be substantial investment in the agriculture sector and also solving the problem of linking farmers to markets. But yet, as it has been said, we have to do them the right way. We cannot just celebrate them without clearly understanding the mechanisms that we are using to be able to acquire them, because these are assets. There's already an article in Front Page Africa that those who are behind this have a huge mining interest in Liberia. I think they mentioned Putu, they mentioned Wologizi and all of that. So then it raises a question as to, considering the fact that we don't have the details around how these machines are going to come, are they coming as a gift? Then it brings our code of conduct into place. Should the government of Liberia be accepting a gift from people who have interest in maybe concessions in Liberia? If they are going to come, they have to actually come the right way. Let's do the right thing. Let's get them. Let's do an assessment to see how they will be deployed, where they will be deployed, how efficiently we can maintain them before we can even go ahead with this. But I don't see any of that
And tell me, what is the right way? You kept mentioning the right way.
No, the right way is to follow our procurement processes. You have to do a tender. You have to publish it. It has to be a competitive bidding. Is this single source from a company that is just giving it to us? So there are laws that guide how we can be able to acquire this kind of thing. Are we borrowing, for instance, to be able to pay for it because the budget said that there's no new borrowing? And everyone is saying that there is no provision for this in the budget. So there are just too many questions. But the broader issue that was mentioned earlier is this whole issue of communication. And I think it came out of the retreat that communication is a problem, because even the foreign minister said it, that there needs to be a centralized communication strategy and system that the government will follow. It seems everyone is just doing anything and posting it on their individual Facebook page. The Minister of Finance quite recently was on another platform, and every time they ask him a question, he will say, I don't have that information yet because it hasn't reached to me. So it appears that people are really doing some stuff, but they are not feeding it to the Ministry of Information. And so in the end, when 3, 4 government officials speak, they all speak on the same issue, but with different versions of their stories. So I think this is something that the government really needs to improve on. When I heard the news, one of the things that came to my mind was that if this is in the shop of the Ministry of Public Work and the Ministry of Agriculture, even if it was going to be, I mean, the minister, the deputy minister without portfolio for technical services is working on this, was she the right person to announce it? Or the public work minister or the Ministry of Agriculture should have done maybe a joint press release? I do know that the Ministry of State has a PDU in many instances that work in the background on issues that are related to heavy lifting on policy reform, but normally they do it quietly. You never hear the PDU just releasing and saying this is something that we are working on. So it has become very confused. They just confuse the citizens. Everyone is confused. Everyone is asking questions. And the press conference that the Minister of Information had, we thought he was going to answer these questions, but he did not answer any of the questions that have been raised. So it's a good intention to be able to build our agricultural sector and build our roads, but there needs to be much more clarity around how the government is going to acquire these assets and how they are going to be deployed. The 19 per county, I don't think we should just follow that formula. We should look at the needs of each county, the capacity of each county before we can actually deploy any machine eventually when we get them.
And Dennis, I don't know if I can rush in with my comment.
Hold on, I want our governors. He's in Monrovia because if you have 19 river, there will be traffic jam in Riverside and I don't know where. But Mr. Salih, is it? I mean, I wanted you to speak to the broader governance issue. First of all, we have the Minister of State without portfolio talking about moving equipment. I'm like, okay, is it because you look at Trokonkwi in charge of WIA project? Is that why? Because in my, looking at Liberian government, I've never seen something like this before. And then also the Minister of Information played and said, oh, there was just a presentation. Why are people even responding to presentation? Governance issue, communication issue, or this is just, intended to just deceive the public. What's going on here?
Dennis, you didn't know about John P. Bear doing President Samuel
was involved in construction stuff. That's what I mean.
No, he wasn't, but look, the Minister of State without portfolio is a sort of special project minister. The president deploys the minister. That's why they say without portfolio. They have the scope to speak to anything that the president assigns to them or that the president wants to move speedily. And so there was no confusion there. The larger governance question is about intergovernment coordination and communication and intra-government coordination inside the government, how, what system they have in place to move pieces of information, policy decisions to release policy decisions to the country, to even reach that decision. What I've been hearing in the media, in the public, on social media, has been a lot of speculation, a lot of and we're engaging in some of it here too. We're making assumptions, and the government based on the way they release the information, has created this atmosphere. So in my view, I mean, I agree with Thomas and Mohammed that, look, we welcome this. If this is really, truly will come to fruition, of course, we want Liberia to be able to triple its speed because we're way behind. However, transparency, accountability to the people, because we're a democracy, right? We are a liberal democracy, republic for the people, by the people, and of the people. And therefore, you're governing on behalf and for the people. You should be transparent. You should state, you know, I mean, we can assume, for instance, that it's off budget. We can assume that this has, you know, the direct cost. The costs are directly incurred by the government. Somebody said it could have been a gift or some kind of concession. If it's a concession, then of course there are implications. There are legal implications, there are PPCC implications, there are legislative implications. So it is, to me, what seems to be a snafu is just that coordination and how information is released and just being transparent about it. If they're transparent, they come up and tell us where this is coming from, how it was secured, and then we can start talking about, okay, this is a good thing, but we know our history. We don't maintain our rules. We don't maintain anything. We don't maintain government fleet. We don't have a system where we really systematically deploy these things. We invest in repairs and things like that and parts. There are all kinds of aspects. Operation, who will be running these? Is it the counties? Knowing how the superintendents have been going about doing things. Some superintendents really don't know their role. They just there ceremoniously, they go around and, you know, maybe driving the biggest vehicle in the county, and that's it. That's the superintendent. So if you really organize and operationalize the superintendent role, and then you have technical people in these counties, and then public works and the responsible sector ministries are overseeing these things. I mean, we could see a big, really, it could be a game changer, you know, and it could be something that the Barker administration would have changed the trajectory of how things have been happening. Again, but it has to be properly released and communicated, and they have to be transparent.
And Mr. Salif, I don't see the. I think there is coordination there, right? But tell me, because don't you think the president, the information minister, is simply cleaning things up because they were all at the place there? The one that received the highest applause were these machines, right? And they said there was a virtual turnover, right? So if the information is, so two things, either the minister of information is cleaning things up, or they have something to hide for which they are making it confusing. Because what is so difficult about letting these things, you know, being very transparent about it?
That's what I'm saying when I speak of coordination. I think the Minister of Information, to me, sounded as though he was walking some things back. He was slowing down the speed because people started questioning, including legislators. Well, you said they're on the way. There will be a turning over ceremony. It means that they've been acquired already. Were they procured? Well, you know, so there are questions to answer, and they're not providing those answers. And so the Minister of Information coming back to say, look, it sounded like this was just a concept that about a decision that will be made. No decision has been made so far. When Minister Ability presented this, it sounded as though we've passed the decision stage.
Right.
You know, yeah, it sounded we've passed the decision stage. So there is some disconnect there in terms of intergovernment coordination and communication.
Yeah, thank you. I know, Konyina, you wanted to say something, Dr. Dukley, and then Mohammed.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it disconnect. I would call it there's some dishonest. The legislature just passed a budget. If you think that this thing is so important, you do a supplement to the budget. What I want to instill in the Liberian people is that there is no way you're going to violate the laws of your country and expect your country to develop. it doesn't happen. The laws is part and parcel of development. So you can say, oh, I'm bringing, I have moving equipment, I'm bringing this, so we just bring it overnight and we dump it. If this thing had been communicated through the budget, we won't be speculating. There'll be no speculation, there'll be no guesswork, because it will be written in the budget. We are speculating now because the sidestep the entire legal aspects and they are doing their own thing. And I keep telling people, go back and observe your law, follow your laws, and then you'll be okay. But to say, oh, we will not follow the law, we'll do our own thing and we'll develop the country is a mirage. It's not going to happen. So there's no disconnect. It's just dishonesty. And somewhere during the show, I will talk a little bit more about the historical level of dishonesty of some of these people.
Yeah, thank you.
But isn't that an assumption, though, that the sidestep, because they haven't disclosed that aspect?
It's not in the budget. We're dealing with the budget, Mr. Salim. We're dealing with the budget.
It's not budget. Okay, it's not every.
The reason why we do a budget is so that we can focus on our development aspect through the budget.
I get it. The budget is the law. Budget is the law. However, there are ways to cooperate with others internationally that are not aligned with the budget, that are not
No, that would be illegal.
Right?
That would be illegal. Any other financial arrangement outside would be illegal.
Okay.
Hold on, Freeman. Let Mr. Sharif give us a way that something can be done outside the budget. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, listen. I mean, look. Your budget, you set your budget. We all know how that process. The budget is the law. I'm not here to argue that do things outside the budget. I'm saying a budget can pass, and the government is constantly engaging in international cooperation, economic integration, and all of these things. They were seeking out development assistance, seeking out all kinds of opportunities for the country. So something could come about, whether it's concession or whether it's a gift. Right, what is a gift that is not directly wasn't even in motion when the budget was passed. So yes, it can come, and then you bring it to the attention of the legislature or the appropriate authorities, and be transparent about it. So it didn't have to have been part of the budget initially, and so we can't sit here and just make that assumption that there's a violation of law because it wasn't in the budget.
Dr. Dugley.
Yeah, I think we are really beating ourselves for nothing. Somebody picked up stock footage on the web, used AI to stamp broadcast pictures on it, put some voices on it, because we didn't see nobody talking. We didn't see none of the people talking. This is like the guy who said, oh, when I build a house, this is going to be the garage. The woman said, no, it's going to be my other room. They start fighting. The men got no car. They have a house. So why we wasting our time discussing this? The minister said nothing has happened. So that's it. Nothing has happened. And this was, I think I put it squarely on the Minister of State with that portfolio. We made a presentation, and I think it was intended to deceive the public, because this was purely work by AI, and it was also to impress the president. The president is not, he's, there's sometimes people show their age when you talk about technology. He may have seen it and say, oh yeah, they got my pictures on it, but he doesn't know AI. I can say that.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, I see you shaking your head. This looks like AI.
It is
unmute
AI.
yourself, please, Mr. Sharif. Mr. Sharif, you are muted. Unmute yourself, please.
I reject the characterization that the Minister of State without portfolio didn't know what she was doing, and that, she's just out there on her own. The executive mansion didn't put out a release to say, we're walking this back. It's the Minister of Information. This infighting has been going on for a while. Jerlimic Pia wants to be, which I guess the Minister of Information is, which I don't think the Minister of Information should exist anyway. Saying that, everything has to pass through me. It doesn't have to be that way. And Ahmed is correct. And, Ahmed, this is his area, and he's telling us this is, we remember the role of the Minister of State without portfolio. So Mama Ability was within her rights to make this announcement. And this is a good announcement for the Liberian people. Look, so something that the attorney talked about, the legality of it, all of these different things. In extraordinary times, extraordinary measures are necessary. In the United States, it happened here. I mean, we had situations here where in the United States, we were all here on September the 11th when, the United States, in the aftermath of that, the government took extraordinary measures. Did we like it? No. Liberia, we have a rotten mess going on in that country. So there is a need to take extraordinary measures. So if you have 285, as they say, I don't know if that's true. If you have 285 earth moving equipment,
that's what Mamaka said. So why are you doubting? Why do you don't know if it's true?
I'm saying that I don't know if we have that, but the fact that there is something there. She's not going to come out there and say something that is untrue. But listen, Dennis, if you have
Mr. Terry, let me
finish my thought.
Go ahead. Sorry.
If you have 285 earth moving equipment for a country like Liberia, do you know that there's, since I was in elementary school, there is no road, there's still no road leading Kilipo to Sipoken? Do you know that? Do you know that there are no roads in some of these places? It's still like, it's as if we were still in the 1920s and 1930s when our people used to walk by foot from Ganta to Zwedri and other places. So if these things are being done, I think that we have to celebrate this. Yes, we have to, look at the legality of it. We have to, caution government to make the right steps. What if HPX has said, okay, here's $30 million for your senators and representatives. Hush, just give us. They will all pocket it. Let me be careful with that. Some of them will pocket this money because I know they are good and decent people in the legislature. So I'm not talking about the good and decent one. There will be some who will pocket this money and no one will hear about this. So if this is translated into something that will bring development to Liberia, all hail the Republic. I don't care about all of the different things and the infighting and whatnot. We need something. We need it drastically.
Mr. Sharif, first of all, I mean, that comparison to 9/11, I mean, there's no 9/11 situation in Liberia now.
Liberia, the existential threat, Dennis, in Liberia.
Well, I don't want to believe the U.S. operate without law. No matter how urgent the matter is.
But my main question here, Mr. Sharif, is it's been 2 days since Mr. Pia said that there's been no decision. Why are we not hearing from the executive mansion?
When was the last time that you've heard from the executive mansion on controversial issues? So this president is not somebody who can step in and break down a controversy. He allowed these things to go on. And this is the thing that we've always talked about this president. I mean, he's going to allow this to fester. He's going to allow it to continue to go on and on and on. And then we're sitting here talking about it. But I believe there is something there. And because there's something there, I'm a happy Liberian tonight because, for a very long time, there was a rotten mess of a muddy mess in the country. The whole place was rotten and nobody is doing anything about it. And we're sitting here talking about legality. Guess what? There are many things in that Constitution that people are not implementing. I will hope that the attorney can talk about some of those things. Certain things that are not implemented in the Constitution. Why are we talking about that? Why are we focused on just this one thing? Because what is hot in the headlines now? I mean, come on. Give me a break.
Let me hear from Thomas, and then we're going to move on to the next. Dr. Duque, you can chime in before Thomas. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
No. It's okay. It sounds like the Trump, Mexican wall. They'll pay for it.
Thomas, is this communication issue? Clearly, President Bouaka was there when the minister made it. And he himself said, hey, in fact, he wanted to put my picture on it. I said, no, put Think Liberia, Love Liberia. I don't know who was putting the picture. Was it the guys in...
It's AI. It's AI. It's AI. I can certify it. It's AI.
And I mean, and I prepared one AI video, but it was too late, for me to show that. But Thomas, let me get your final thought on this.
So, I mean, if it is AI generated and the Minister of State presented it and it has not been sanctioned by the president or he's not aware of it, then how come he said that I asked them to use Love Liberia, Think Liberia, and not my picture? Because what I'm starting to notice in this government is that apparently there are decisions that are taken which might not be endorsed by the entire cabinet and maybe not approved by the president. Similar thing happening in the rice, in the case of the increase in the price of rice. The Minister of Commerce comes out and announces that we've negotiated with rice importers and we didn't reach an agreement, and therefore we are going to allow the price of rice to go up. One day after that, they meet with the president and the president says no. So the decision that was taken by the Minister of Commerce, did the president actually sanction it? Similar to this, was it to his knowledge? If it was not to his knowledge, then he should have been shocked when the AI generated video was shown in the cabinet meeting. But I would think that based on what he said and what you play, it was to his knowledge. And so, I mean, it's just the whole issue of how are
And
they
what does
trying.
that mean? What does that mean when it's to his knowledge? Is he actually sure of equipment, or even he was told and he believed it? What does that knowledge mean?
I mean, if the minister said that it was on the way coming, so the placing of the pictures will be to prepare the machines to come, right? So if the president is saying, I told him not to put my picture, but to put Think Liberia, Love Liberia, it goes back to the point that we made earlier, that is as if this is complete, the acquisition of the asset is complete and they are on their way coming. And if the government reached that point, then the broader question is that what are the procedures that they follow to be able to acquire the assets? Who are they acquiring it from?
Right.
How are we paying for it? How is it going to arrive in the country? Is it a gift? Are we paying for it? Is it coming through a development agency like Ahmed was saying? Yes, we can do these kind of bilateral engagements and countries can give it to us. But if it is coming from a private company in South Africa and buying from a private company in China, then who's paying for it before they put the president's
And why
picture
do you
on it?
think we don't have this Why do you think this information is not out for us to consume?
If the information is not out, it's a communication problem in the government because
Just
we have
communication?
no. What I'm saying is that if they've not communicated how they've gone through the process, then we have a communication problem. If they go ahead with this without answering all of the questions that have been asked, then we have governance issues, we have public financial management issues, we have procurement issues associated with it. And like the Dr. Duke said earlier that nothing has happened, I think there's already a damage that has been caused. And the bad thing to this is that people, like you said, people have already started to compare this to Igbo map and Eton, right? The more this government starts to match the record of George Weah on how reckless his government was with communication, on how reckless he was with engaging in mineral swap and some of these things, the more they are creating the opportunity for George Weah to come back to power. So they have to be very careful with what they are doing. They have to elevate governance to the level that it will not be questionable. But every day when there's this blunder and everybody keeps talking about it, we are just, watering where George Weah has planted his second term presidency, and we are grooming it. And in 2029, he will come back to power because it was the blunder of Madam Sadiq in her second term that made George Weah president. And if this government is not careful, they are going right back to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Top Talking Thursday. We are discussing the yellow machines. The next thing I want us to talk about is the office of the president made some appointments. One, the Board of Governors of Booker T. Washington Institute. The one that really caught my attention, the AD camps. He appointed 16 AD camps for the 16 counties. And our governors guys here, most of you know what the AD camp, because when I first saw this, I first heard this when President Salih was in power, that when he goes to the county, the AD camps are responsible. So, Koine,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about these AD camps. Major
What
General
I don't know
Ballard
much
is
about
the senior
AD
AD.
camps. What I know is that there should be some financial prudence if you want to get out of poverty. And if you don't exercise that financial prudence, you will be stuck in poverty for a long, long time. So if you look at the Liberian government, we've already said, and the UP government promised in their platform that we was operating around 85% recurring funds. And so they were going to bring it down. In their first budget, they are up to 90%. And if the president keeps appointing, making these kinds of appointments, all right, you will get to a point where you just pay salaries and people will have no work to do because they might have no computer to work with, no equipment, no car to move around because you are paying salaries. So I think when you have a country like Liberia, you need to sit down and see what is sensible, what makes sense. But it's unfortunate you can't get out because they say you can't teach old dog new tricks. How are you going to tell 80-year-old man that government does not have unlimited amount of money? Baka is old school. He comes from the 70s. He's taking us back to the 70s where they assume that government has unlimited amount of money. And that is not true. But that's why Baka has been schooled in. And he will continue to do that until he realizes that he can't pay civil servants. Then he will slow down. For me, it doesn't make sense. Expanding the government
what does that have to do with ageism, Ms. Anthony Freeman? Because you can be,
the ageism, yes, because if you
make that same decision.
Yeah, because if you spend most of your time in the 70s and the 80s, where government was terribly mismanaged, where government funds were some kind of slush funds where people just go and take and waste, and if that had been your experience, you will continue to want to relive that experience. And so you're not forward thinking.
But he was vice president for 12 years, my friend.
Right.
Yes, and we know we accuse that government of being vastly corrupt.
Exactly.
And that is some of the same things that they are going back to. You're just wasting money.
Thank you. We got a Major General Abraham Ballard, Senior AD Camp, Brigadier General Abraham Bongo, Junior AD Camp. Then you have Stephen Vapi, AD Camp of Lopa. Mr. Sharif, we have Mr. To, AD Camp of River G, and my own Sino have Mena W. Mena AD Camp Sino.
Mr. Well, before Sharif come in, I think
Dr. Dugle, what the AD Camp?
There are some functions. There are some functions in the government that you can't just say, "Oh, we're not going to do it because we don't have money." The president goes to a county. There has to be somebody there to represent that office. This has been going on for time immemorial. Why do we want to change? I mean, $200-300 a month. That's going to develop the government. That's going to change the budget because you give $200-300 to some old people sitting in the county and say, you are what do you call it?
Like what do they do? What do the AD camp?
They don't do anything. They just wait for the president. When the president comes, they work behind the president because that means the county, they represent the county security for the president. That's what they do. They don't do anything. They don't have an office. They don't have anything. Except when the president comes, they get dressed up and they work between the president and the AD camp. That's all they do. It's part of the state function. You can just discard them. And it's not like they're getting paid $200,000-300,000 a month. These are usually old soldiers, retired policemen, etc., who get like $200-300 a month. That's what they do. You can, I don't think that's a debate. It's not something, it's like saying, do we need ministers because we don't have money? Let's judge some things that make sense, okay?
If President Bouaka doesn't go to Grand Crew, for instance, for the next 6 years, that guy will enjoy.
Yeah, you get his $200 and stay. It's like in every county, there's supposed to be a residence for the president. When the president visits, there's supposed to be a residence. Some countries have it, some countries don't. But that's how Liberia has been funded. You integrate a county into the system, and then you give them those things, little jobs. And you can't change that overnight and say, oh, we don't have money, so we can pay this old man $200 a month, but we can pay some senator who's sitting in Monrovia doing nothing and pay him $15,000 a month. Come on, let's
Mr.
be
Sharif,
serious.
so what do we do here? The law is tying our hands to make this appointment where they do nothing.
You know, I'm laughing because Dr. Douglas, you really make me laugh on this one. I mean, look, you know, Aide the camps, aides the camp that they have appointed. I've always, you know, talk about, you know, creating a big government, but this I think this goes back. Boakai is looking at precedents. I mean, this was, I think this was.
He's always been there. He's always been part of it.
Yeah, I stand corrected. I think this was even Barclay time, Tubman time. I stand corrected. But
no, it's part of it.
Okay.
You know, as the countries came in, they appointed this, you know, superintendent, you know, Edekan and all. The Edekan doesn't even respond to the superintendent. He's just there or she's there when the president comes. That's all.
Okay.
If the president doesn't come, he get his $100 or $200 a month, and it is cassava green or cassava leaf or something.
Yeah.
Let's not blow it. You know, not everything.
That is the cumulative effect of those kinds of decisions. The cumulative effect.
No, I'll go after the $15,000, $10,000 to the.
No, just a quick point. While it is true that the amount may be small, the more and more you do that, you consume almost all your budget in salaries. You are not going to fix roads. You are not going to buy equipment. You are not going to build hospitals or buy supplies. That is the point. So you need to cut back on some of these unnecessary expenditure. If there's a law and it's not good, repeal the laws.
No, Mr. Councilor, this is not pageantry. It's part of the state structure. You can't just discard them overnight.
You can repeal the laws. You can repeal any law. If it's not a constitution, you can repeal it.
Yeah, but we can close down the Senate too and save money.
What's wrong? What's wrong? There are a lot of countries that have only one chambers. We don't have to have two chambers.
You know, yeah.
Mr. Sharif, I want you to complete. You know, so here, okay, this is government. So where's the change?
Yeah. So I mean, look, I don't have a problem with these aides the camp. You know, appointing these aides de camp. You know, in the counties. I mean, how much are paid? Like, are they? Is this massive amount? Attorney, I'm wondering if, you know, you question some of these appointments in George Weah time as well, because you've been vociferous on these, and I like that, but I didn't hear this from you when George Weah was traveling the country.
Check out my blog, wonderfremont.com.
And spending hundreds of millions of dollars.
I heard from him, Mr. Sharif, but that's not the point. What do we do now? Are you saying, well, the money is small, so we're going to do that? We're going to keep doing that? Yeah, or are we going to you know, press some buttons to make some changes? Because we have a bloated government, our money is spent on salaries, and there's nothing to develop the country.
It's bloated bureaucracy, and if you heard me, but I mean it's the camp in the counties. I mean, if left to me, you want to decentralize a government. So if this is a way of decentralizing, I look at this a different way than perhaps everyone else on the platform today. I look at this as part of decentralization of government. So I like that. I mean, you know, you have everybody sitting there in Monrovia, you know, your ministries and stuff like that. We talk about tonight, we talk about, you know, rice and stuff like we're going to be talking about that. You have your agriculture ministry, and the bulk of them sitting in Monrovia. Some of these have to be decentralized. So if the task of the is the camp is decentralized, it's all for the better, I would think.
How is that? You know,
again, I will borrow from Dr. Douglas on this one. You know, you are what you are doing is you're creating opportunities, because until at such time that we're not very dependent on the public sector, you're going to have something like this. But look, you have, you know, more than half of the population dependent, whether we like it or not, on the public sector, which is, you know, waning, you know, our budget, which is, you know, devastating to our budget, and I do recognize that. But until at such time that we can be private sector, heavily leaning private sector, these things are going to happen. And as Dr. Douglas said, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but he said, these old men, if you have these individuals employed in those areas and they have something to do, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a
Mr. Salif, Mr. Sharif says it's a good thing. The same way we have all these city mayors, Grand Crew has more cities than Nimba County. And according to some senators or some legislators from the South, they say, well, our place is cut off. This is a way of giving jobs to our people. Now we have, and let's use the real French pronunciation, aide de camp. It's a French word. So we have the aide de camp being appointed. And
yeah, but they've been there. Just every
yeah,
president comes, they replace them. They replace
exactly.
them. Yeah, sometimes
So
you
business
reappoint
as
the same
usual.
person. Huh?
What do we do here? What are the recommendations, Mr. Salif?
Well, I mean, look, there's a big picture problem here. These aid comes, they're not just one-time ceremonial things when the president comes. It's supposed to be an office in a way that is part of the presidency, that they're, part of the Ministry of State, essentially, or the security apparatus. These are assistants to the president. So when the president comes to the county, or when this matters concerning the office of the president. There are other structures, but these, like
Like
Dr.
what
Duque said,
outside
these
the
are,
superintendent office? What else they're going to be doing
well,
outside?
there could be,
I mean, when the
that
president
these
is
are
not there.
I don't particularly know. I mean, I didn't even know that they really have been there in the past. I just saw the appointment, so that's hard for me to. But
Okay.
just knowing what they do, what their role is, right? What that office is really a matter of presidential sort of staffing. And so if we're saying, okay, so what's the recommendation? It's not for us to say the president has already appointed these people. We can recommend, all right, withdraw them, save the money, redirect the funds somewhere else, assuming that will be, the such funds will be redirected somewhere else, or could end up in somebody's pocket. Or should we have these people who, feel that they're part of the government, they're serving the president? Yeah, that is, there's some things that you can get rid of if they're part of the ceremonial structure. Remember, now we have two in one in our system. You have the head of state and head of government in one person. So you have some roles that seem to be obsolete, yet they have their own place in history.
Thank you. And let me mention that all of them, for the names I see, they are all men, right? So we don't, and the brigadier general, and these are all men.
And that's
Come on.
and you brought that up. That's very important. That's key. This thing should be, it should be women as well in it. So that's a great point.
Mr. Kane, have you worked with any of these aides that come before? Have you seen one?
They said they only come out when the president is in the country, so I've not been lucky to
Right.
see them.
It is unlikely for President Bouakai to visit places like Grand Crew or River G.
Why not?
Dennis.
Because he has no history of going to that part of the country for the past 18 years.
Well, if the vice president goes, then the AD will be used.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think now that he's president, he will have to go. The only point I have to make on this is that I think as the country, as we are moving forward, we constantly will have to review the structure of our government, the nature of our institutions, to see what we can keep because of the historical context, and also what we don't need. So, if, for instance, we are now going to this issue of um, decentralization, do we really need these people to be there? Or considering the fact that the local governments are government by themselves, they should be able to play that role when the president visits them. But if they are still part of our laws, then we cannot just say that the president should stop appointing these people. Like you said, the local government positions in Sino, in Grain Crew, they are very large. There are places that people are referring to as cities. They are not actually cities. When you go to these, you go to these counters, like you are entering a town, and the signboard is ahead of you as you enter the town. The entire town is covered by the signboard. You don't even see the town. You have to pass the signboard before you can see the houses that are there. But yet they have a city mayor, they have an administrative assistant, and it makes work difficult in those environments. Because when you go to work, even you go to do development work, you have to meet all of these chiefs, all of these government officials. They got a Liberian flag right behind them. So if you go to do a piece of work for 2 hours, you might end up doing it for 6, 7 hours because you have to follow the protocol before you actually do the work that you have gone to do. So I think we just need to review our governance structure to see how we can make it lean, maybe a little bit smaller, but much more effective, and get people that can actually do the work. But if we cannot do these amendments, then of course we're just going to continue appointing people in the historical positions that were established previously.
Mr. Sharif, I want you to have the last word on this one. What are your suggestions going forward?
Suggestion on government,
on this big government.
Yeah, what I've said before, and I'll reiterate, is that the Liberian government historically has been really large, especially after the coup of 1980. Now you have bloated bureaucracy where look, Minister of State without portfolio. Like, what are you doing? You already have the Minister of State, but then you got to add without portfolio. So you have that going on. You have certain ministries that need to go, like the Ministry of Information. You don't need that. You need.
I disagree with that one, though.
Yeah, I mean, you need the Bureau of Culture and Tourism. You don't need the Minister of Information, Culture, and Tourism. You don't need that. So there are ministries that you can cut. And then let's go to the Ministry of Education, where you have ghost names on a long list of ghost names on payrolls. You can go to any rural area and see these empty classrooms, but teachers, hundreds of teachers or thousands, are still on these payrolls that have not been cleaned up. So who is taking this money? And then you go to other sectors, and don't go to NPA and all these other places. Then now you're talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that's wasted. Let's not forget that's the executive. But go to the legislature. I mean, look at the legislature. Look at the money that's been spent on upkeeping the legislators. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that the Speaker of our House of Representatives is better paid than the Speaker of the United States. Let that make sense. So none of this makes sense. The Liberian nation state is being fleeced. We have presidents upon presidents who have fleeced the nation. George, we have fleeced the nation in many, many ways, by traveling all across the country. And no one talked about this, and
a lot of people talk about that, Mr.
Okay, a lot of people.
Let's move to our last topic. If you can conclude in the next 30 seconds.
And so, you really have to downsize, government. But by doing that, you also have to empower the private sector. There has to be a vibrant private sector to move people away, to win people away from this bloated bureaucracy. There's no way around this. It's a very, very big bureaucracy.
Thank you. Our last point here before our friend in Monrovia goes to bed is 1 p.m., 1 a.m. there, and he got work tomorrow. It is on this issue of the Rice Committee, the Committee on Rice. I don't know. There's a President Bouakai sets up committee on rice. This was yesterday press release. It's the Excellency President Bouakai has constituted a committee on rice to ensure the stability of the country's staple. The committee is expected to undertake the following: 1, formulate policy to ensure constant and steady supply of rice in the country. 2, formulate strategy for accelerated local production of rice and input substitution. 3, ensure Liberian participation in the importation and distribution of rice throughout the country. And 4, ensure database of rice, price comparison of major rice producing countries, and the grades of rice. This is all about rice. The committee members are Ambassador Charles Manor, Chairman, David Vinton. I was surprised that David anyway, we can
still,
say
still
that.
around, still
He's
around.
still alive. He's still alive. He can't walk like you, but he's still around.
Oh my God.
Okay. And then you have the Commerce Ministry, the Finance Ministry, all part of it. Mr. Salif, do we need a rice committee? I wonder if we're going to have cassava committee too if we start eating more cassava than rice.
Oh yeah, look, I've been talking to people about this rice committee business. Um, to me, it sounds like an attempt to address a recurrent problem in a short term, because that is not a long-term solution. If we're going to the arrest agenda has agriculture, right? That's the number one thing, and food security, embedded in that. But then the count two on the rice committee's scope of work is to ensure rice production of sorts. So what does that mean? Rice production, you're veering in the purview of the Minister of Agriculture, for instance, and they're on this committee. Um, so to me, I'm not against that, setting up a committee to make sure that you crisis manage, because there are a lot of things that could be done in the short run, to really stabilize and then control price in a way that ordinary people, all of us, is our staple food, that there's no rice crisis. However, that's not sustainable. That is not a long-term solution that develops Liberia, that makes Liberia self-sufficient in rice production, and cultivation and processing and selling and scaling and export, so that we actually earn, some dollars on our export in us. So for the first time, so we can actually be a country that exports rice. Why not? I mean, like I always give the Vietnamese example. They eat rice as their staple. They weren't always exporting rice, but now they're one of the major exporters of rice in they and the Koreans. And so we have similar soil, we have similar characteristics as a country. Why can we really strive for those kinds of big investments that will change things around? That's what I'm looking at. It seems impossible, but it's not. And I know we can do it. To me, the rice committee is a stopgap solution.
Mr. Salif, number one is formulate policy to ensure constant and steady supply of rice in the country. Isn't that the Commerce Ministry?
Right.
Formulate strategy
Well,
for
that's why
local production of rice. It's in the agriculture. Ensure Liberian participate in the importation. So everything
this is
so what is
this is a
happening
political
here?
committee. Dennis, this is a political crisis management process. You may not agree with it, but you know that constantly rice. You saw what happened. The Commerce Ministry took a decision to adjust rice price, and it became almost instantly a crisis, and the president had to nip it. So the way to address that in the short run is to constitute a committee like this that will oversee some of the policy questions and some of around who is the importer of rice, or what is the quality of rice that gets imported into Liberia on our market and consumed by our people, and how can Liberians tap in that market, and also, if I read it correctly, what is the sustainable path to winning ourselves out of this conundrum? That's what this committee. But then you just ask the right question. Look, if the Minister of Commerce and the Minister of Agriculture have a sustainable plan and vision, then we shouldn't be having this committee. But at the same time, you and I know that there will be constantly crises, rice shortages, and it becomes a political problem. The president does not want that. It will be a distraction to him trying to implement his agenda. And so he sets up a committee that's responsible for actively overseeing these things in the short run. That's how I see it. But there shouldn't be the need for such a committee if those ministries are really doing what they ought to be doing and finding sustainable solutions.
I want to come in.
Yes, yes, sir.
I think we in 2016, when we were doing the Common African Position with the AU, President Sirleaf invited this guy who was Minister of Agriculture. I don't know, some of you may remember when we were growing up, Ethiopia was the country of famine. There was no food. People bought stamps and sent them $1, a quarter, and stuff like that. But that guy turned around. He was his name is Bekasho. He became minister when he was 32 and turned around the whole process. And now Ethiopia is no longer hungry. You know what? And he came to Morovia. He asked him, and we invited the Minister of Agriculture. She was not there, but Dr. McLean, who was deputy minister at the time, came and made a presentation. He said, "You're taking the whole thing upside down. You have to know why you people are so addicted to rice in the first place and how to win them." Like Mom, you said. And then he said, it's about marketing. It's about nutrition. What are you need? What do you value in your country as food? How can you get your people to change? We say it's more about marketing than production. If you market it right, people will go back to find the rice. And then the second part of it that we always forget, we became addicted to Pusawa because fast food imported it back because they needed all the young men and women on the farm. That was the reason. They brought the rice cheap, and we all started eating it, and we thought it was natural. And people now think, oh yeah, Liberians are naturally racist. No, this started in the 1930s when all the young men and young women went to work for Farastum, and Farastum bought a cheap rice on the market and brought it to Liberia, and almost for free. So how do we, and they invested in the January 20, the rice riots? Yes, they were not for the rice. They were not. They didn't want to have a program. They didn't want that to work. They wanted to keep the same system, keep bringing the cheap rice and send the young men and young women into the farm to go produce rubber. And we have to see the intersection of all these things together. And I've said a committee. Yeah, it's good to have a committee, but I would prefer a committee that would work on a long term. Let the ministries do the ad hoc thing. Ministry, okay, what is the crisis moment? What do we do to get some supply of rice? And how do we make sure there's a rice disposal in the country, like in LPMC, we bring back LPMC. Whatever you want to do, but the committee, yeah, you can set up a committee, but if I'm Minister of Commerce and I'm Minister of Agriculture, and then you set up a committee to put somebody else that I have to go explain my problem to, I'll say, well, maybe I need a new job. Maybe I need a different job. This is a job for the Minister of Commerce, the Minister of Agriculture, and probably the Minister of Transport to talk to me to look at the long-term issues of nutrition in Liberia. Nutrition, not just rice, everything else. So that's my point.
Thank you. Let me welcome Honorable William Gadier-Greaves, our former Consul General of the Republic of Liberia.
Where you been, welcome, Billy? Where you been?
I've been hiding.
I can see
that.
that.
For having me, guys. It's a privilege, and I'm happy to be here again. Talking Thursday.
Thank you. Let's talk to Thomas. We have the rice committee. I don't know if we could have food committee, right?
Nutrition committee.
And the thing about it is, rice is, in fact, rice is nothing without the potato greens or something, right? No, rice and soup.
Palaver sauce. Talk about Palaver sauce, man. Don't.
Well, for me, I think we had a whole show last week discussing the issue of rice. We need to solve this problem. My issue on the committee is that we've seen this before. We've seen previous presidents set up committees, and then after 1 to 2, 3 months, the committee gets missing. You really don't know what they are doing. You don't see them producing reports. And then you go back to where you are coming from. When I go through the functions of the committee that are listed, the one that I take interest in is the last bullet. It says, yes, it says ensure database of rice, price comparison of major rice producing countries and the grades of rice that they produce. For God's sake in heaven.
It's on the Ministry of Commerce website.
So what? My question is, as a country, a staple food that we say has a national security implication, we don't have a database for it. That this committee will have to ensure that we have a database.
You got database for population?
This just should have it. So it's just very interesting to me. I don't know why they placed this last bullet there, because it's just something that we should have. If we don't have it at this point in time, then how do we even engage these importers? They just come to us and give us a bullet. They say, okay, India increased their export tariff on rice, and therefore we want to increase the price of rice in your country. India is just one exporter of rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we did not even check other countries to see what is happening there. And they had to call a meeting for them to go and meet the president. We are also in the region, we are very famous for exporting iron ore. Do we have any kind of database in that country that tells us what is the price for iron ore, for rubber, for other things that can really inform us as to how we do the pricing? Now we are talking about export on processed rubber and out of the country, all of that. It just goes back to the point where we have critical work to do in the country, but I don't think people put a lot of energy into it. And once that attitude is there, even when you form these multi-layer committees, the job doesn't get done because people will not be able to really take it seriously. So, like has been said, I think we need a long-term strategy to address the issue of this rice. And I think it comes at a point where you have a president that is having a background in agriculture, other development agencies like the African Development Bank, everyone is talking about food production in Africa these days. The African Development Bank, all of these agencies are very interested in making sure that Africa can feed itself. So I think we need to take advantage of the opportunities that are existing so that we can solve this rice problem once and for all.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that the people that are on the heading the committee are very old, does that concern you too?
Look, you're not going to draw me now tonight on this agency, so I'm going to stay clear of that. But look, the thing here is that I think Dr. Douglas made a point earlier. I mean, if you are the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Commerce, and then you have Charles Manor now, who's heading a commission that you probably have to report to. Look, there's no need for this committee. So why don't you tax the full ministries, like the Minister of Agriculture, Commerce, Transportation, even Public Works is implicated in this somehow. So it's sort of interministerial coordination to bring up something to government. You don't need Monrovia bureaucrats, right? Sitting in Monrovia now, all of a sudden they're going to need big cars. They're going to need phone cars. They're going to need gasoline. Accommodations and whatnot to operate this committee. You don't need that. You already have the structures in place. You already have, the Minister of Agriculture and the Ministry of Agriculture. Like, what are they doing? So, this is something, again, goes to what, one of your questions, you talk about the bureaucracy, and this is part of building this big, bloated bureaucracy, because these guys, are going to be asking for money to sponsor this commission, and these guys are going to be living on this commission. They're going to extend this, all the way to the end of times. And at the end of the day, you're never going to find any result. This is not the first commission. I mean, there has been several other commissions before this, and you're not going to find any results. So the money expended that will be expended on this commission, there's not going to be any fruit that will be, they're not going to bear any fruit. So, I don't like this kind of commission. Certainly, I don't like this. You go back to what works. You task the Ministry of Agriculture. I mean, if they're not doing their job, that's what reshuffles are for, right? You reshuffle the government. You tell the Minister of Agriculture to step down. And lastly, I think, food production in Liberia has to now be like, we're in extraordinary times. Extraordinary measures are needed. I know we're a market-driven economy, but you need a public-private partnership in the area of food production. We've been doing this for over and over. You know, the old model has not worked. So we need something, and government has to be involved. So you want to drive, you know, the population to the rural areas. You want to make it very enticing to work in the rural areas. You want to make it very enticing, agriculture very enticing. You know, if someone wants to tell me something now that, you know, if someone wants to insult me, they'll say, okay, Sharif, just go on your farm. I mean, that's how people look down on farmers, but the farming is very important. It's key. It's a key ingredient, you know, to building the Liberian economy, and this should be promoted.
Thank you. Konyene, you know, President Boakai, you know, rise or the arrest agenda. The first one is agriculture. Why are we struggling? Why is it there seems to be a struggle of President Boakai and this rice issue? Just last week or the last time we're here, we're talking about what the comment minister said, and the president came back to say something else. Now, with the issue, say, okay, let's have a committee. Does President Boakai have a handle on the agriculture issue or the food issue?
Let's just correct some of the historical fallacies. The idea that Boakai has a handle on agriculture is misleading. In fact, Boakai contributed to some of the problems we have. I'll give you an example. I have an audit report, and I can share with anybody who wants it, dating back to 1984. And that audit was conducted between 1980 to 1984 when Boakai was heading the LPMC. There was the US government funded program for rice to assist Liberia to import rice through financing arrangement. And what the Boakai, who was heading that committee, what did they do? They squandered that opportunity. They gave about $1 million of, in fact, there was a total of $92 million. They gave at least $14 million out of which they could not collect. So Boakai had been squandering opportunity for a long time. And even in the agricultural sector when he had an MPMC. So let me tell you something. The idea in Liberia that every time you have a problem, you set up a new organization will just lead all to poverty. Or you have a corruption problem, so you set up an anti-corruption court. Or you have a corruption problem, so you set up an asset recovery team, and you just make the government big and big and bigger. The problem with the agriculture setting up rice committee is not going to help. That committee was set up in 1968 by Tottenham. Okay? It doesn't solve the problem. In Tottenham time, they set up all these ADPs, LCADP, BCADP. I'm sure you can remember BCADP and LCADP. Yeah, they set up all these agencies. Okay? And what became of them? Because the problem is the lack of transparency, accountability. So at the end of the day, even the most beautiful projects end up breaking down. Let me tell you, let's break down the Liberia rice problem. We consume at least 540 megatons of rice, and we produce 170. So there is a gap between what we consume and what we produce. To solve that problem, you probably have to introduce supply side policies, and you have to introduce demand side policies. So supply side policies is where you put in the budget assistance for farmers and to help cooperatives and what have you. And of course, the demand side is where you spur investment in the sector. So, but when you have a budget, for example, before the demise of the Turbo regime, he was spending close to 9% of the budget on agriculture. Currently, as we speak, we are spending around 1% of our budget on agriculture under a man who is the chief. So all that thing is just misleading. You know, in Liberia, when you say something, you say it so frequently, people just grab it without any research or any investigation. So what we need to do in Liberia is not to treat the rest as a political issue, because it is an economic issue. Okay? So if you treat it as an economic issue, and then you put in funding to assist the cooperatives, and you put in funding to spur supply. And at the same time, you increase, for example, the Liberian government maybe fee school. You can demand that all the school feeding buy Liberian rice, for example, or all the hospitals, they under your control. And so you spur investment in the sector. So those are things that we can do while curbing the issue of waste, abuse, and corruption in the system.
Thank you. And my way of
I want to add something to what he said. You know, there was a program started back by, you know, the Governance Commission and UNDP, I think, way back 2015, where some schools in the countryside produce what they, you know, eat at school. They've done that. They've done that in many, many schools. And the program has been going on for 5-6 years now. I don't know if it's still going on, but it was started back in 2016.
They need to do more.
Thank you.
And the CADPs were very, very effective, the BCADP and so on. I don't know, you know, where your data, I mean, I remember as a youngster, I had relatives working for BCADP. It was a very effective agriculture. It seemed like they were, you know, feeding LPMC back and forth. So if you can have that kind of thing across the country in various regions, I think it will help spur agricultural growth and people's participation.
So the question is why the agricultural president has not introduced it in the first budget.
Okay, we'll invite the agriculture minister to answer. But one of the things that I'm going to do when I'm superintendent of Sino is we're going to have the school feeding program, but we're going to shift the habit. Beans will be number one because that's what we ate during the war that kept us alive, right? So beans. And if we can have cassava, potatoes, anything we have goes with beans. We used to, during our refugees day, we call beans the universal servant because it goes with everything. That way we can shift the eating habits of the kids very young. So this whole idea of rice our staple, we probably start to change that. So that will come under the Palo Sino Farms. If when you are Honorable Greaves, let's talk about the rice committee. Well, what's your take?
Yeah, that is. Thanks for having me again. I listened to all of my fellow panelists, and I think everybody got one or two points, very salient recommendations I've heard. But I will go more on the committee and the issues surrounding the geopolitics and the global arena. We have a dire issue, not just with Liberia. It is the whole thing that is happening right now is not ubiquitous to Liberia alone, as it has affected the entire global market, and it's multifaceted, it's layered. So, what I would hope that we find mechanism and find ways to get ourselves afloat, because you know rice is our staple, and in the meantime, finding substitutions and all that to, like you just alluded to, will be a meaningful help. But what can we do right now? Now, with the setup of the committee, if you look at it from a very critical standpoint and looking at it from the whole framework of committees and their responsibilities, I would think it's a wise and strategic decision by the government to set up a committee that will come in and give some level of relief to the main bodies, the administration itself, as they go about their normal duties, official duties. Now, there are pros and cons. What are the cons? The pros. It could be effective for problem solving, especially in regards to the national issue. Could be confirming the building camaraderie with the public, the various stakeholders. That involves the public, the society, the common people, as well as the importers, those who are involved with importing rice in our country. Not usurping the official responsibility of the administration, because what I was reading that you sent me, I got a little confused. A committee is not set up to create or formulate policies. A committee is only set up to make recommendations. And what a committee does is that they try to alleviate that burden, that polarization of the and the tension that comes on the government as the government try to deal with certain particular issues. Now, in this case, it's rights issue. So to have the public polarized and aggrieved and disenfranchised or the basic commodities which such as our stable, you need a committee to go in there and dialogue. You need the committee to go in there and form cohesiveness and collaborations with all players, leaving the authorities and those with the in administration with requisite authorities, like Dr. Douglas just alluded to, the Minister of Commerce, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister, all those people who play the game. You're giving them the least chance, mitigating the situation on them, releasing the tension of them, so that they can go in effect and make sure that rice productivity, whether it's importation or what have you, is done without tension. The committee is like the wall between the public and the administration, so that burden is not just focused on the burden and then everybody's running scatter and then polarization and there's demonstrations and all of that. So, but what I was reading, I think the government is in the right position, the right strategy, but if they're not mindful, they will be turning this whole thing into the coins. What we're talking about, people being misplaced, not understanding exactly what they are there for, because that people start assuming the post as if I'm official, I'm the one to make decisions, I'm the one to make policies and what have you, which is not the case, and that will be convoluting. That will be very contradicting to what the committee is to be working on. So that is domestic. We go on the global trade or the agriculture food trade globally. We see the problem that we have right now is two major producers of rice and wheat and grains. We just summarize as grains. Russia and Eastern Europe, and you got Russia and Ukraine at conflict. They are the world's largest and major importers of those commodities. And the Black Sea has been restricted by Russia, that Ukraine cannot export to the length, to the ultimate point they used to before the conflict. Russia has sanctions on them. They cannot maneuver the way easily. So all of those export from those countries have been dramatically reduced, cut short. And that affects not only Liberia. That's why I say it's ubiquitous to every nation around the world. Europe, Africa, Asia, everywhere we're feeling the burnt. And how do we get about that? Is to somehow the dialogue, to find means, to find other mechanisms. But the government has to be in the forefront and not leaving that burden on the committee. Then we got a Red Sea situation in Yemen, where the free flow of traffic, where transportation of vessels and commodities fly through to bring commodities to Africa, bring it to other parts of what have you, has been totally restricted. You have the U.S. and some parts of the European countries who are there providing ways to get vessels through. But then you have to be connected. If you're not a vessel that in that category or in that level to be protected, for free passage, you can pass through, or else you'll get damaged. So all the vessels now have been rerouting, taking longer routes, going around the places that should take them like 2-3 weeks to the destination point. They're taking months to get there by rerouting. It's very expensive, very costly. Fuel and other responsibilities that they have to go through in terms of finance and what have you. So it's really restraining them. So all of these things are causing problems to us, like Ghana, Nigeria, Liberia, the shortage of not just rice alone, but other basic commodities, in agricultural produce. So countries even are producing rice and producing all of these crops. Can't even get fertilizers. We're getting fertilizer from these same two countries. And so the situation is multifaceted, it's multi-layered, and there are a lot of things that we have to look into and not just create a committee and think they can they use the magic wand to just make sure that everything is mitigated and alleviated.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Stop Talking Thursday. If you want to be part of the conversation, please call the number that's on your screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. At this time, while we wait for callers to come in, we'll quickly conclude on the rice issue. I give you 30 seconds each. What is the solution here? President Bouaka said, let's do a rice committee. Dr. Dukley, what would be your solution?
I think we summarized pretty much what need to be done. I think the committee should be looking at things for long-term solutions, not just rice, but nutrition in Liberia in general, and make a recommendation for the government to follow. And instead of a committee like this, I would have prefer a cabinet committee set up in the cabinet and say, you 3, 4 ministers, find me solution to this. And then let them work as, I don't want, creating new bureaucracies, committees. I mean, Tolbert did probably the best work with, 1970, was it 1979 Rights Committee? Those ideas are still there. They're still valid. Why not just take them up and look them up and say, okay, which part of this can we implement and what can we leave behind and all of that. That's my position. I think, we should just open the market. I think the market should be totally open. Government should make sure there's a reserve of rice, like for 90 days, but make sure anybody who got money to import rice, like in Ivory Coast, I serve there as chief of mission in Ivory Coast. Anybody who got 5 cents, you import 5 cent rice, you import it. And they never talk about crisis.
Mr. Stalif, why the government can't import the rice? We don't have the money?
The same reason they pay salaries. They pay salaries. So if you spend all your money in salaries,
salary, right, and make profit. Right?
Yeah, here's the thing. Our country, when you have a staple food, you have a reserve fund, so that when your stock level goes down, you can use your reserve to cushion the supply. But if you are spending all the money you get in salary, aid camp, and all kinds of portfolio, you will be broke all the time. So when there is a shortfall or there is a disruption in the market, you will not be able to intervene. That is the reason why.
And I think that the subsidy that they're giving to importers is just a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. So withdraw this subsidy and, create this sort of public-private partnership in the rural areas. So you move a large portion of the rural areas. You make it very enticing, agriculture very enticing in the rural areas so that people are not, gravitating towards the city. So they move towards the rural areas. So I would say, you make teaching in the rural areas very enticing. You make agriculture production, food production in the rural area very, very enticing. Not just rice, but other crops as well. You're talking, a country that's rich. You have rich land all over the place. I mean, you have swamps. You have all kinds of land mass in Liberia that we're not utilizing. So when you do those things, and measure your results. So you don't just throw money out there and sit back and say, oh yeah, now we're going to be food self-sufficient. We have to measure these results, on an annual basis or semi-annual basis. And then, we'll get somewhere. But I think that the government, short of me saying, the government needs to have a public farm project like in the Marxist, private socialist countries. But we need to do something radically different. I mean, some countries tried that in the 60s and 70s. They were able to feed themselves. So, I mean, there has to be something. And Dr. Dugley definitely mentioned, Ivory Coast, something along those lines. But you have to be able to go out there and learn from those countries and learn what they're doing. I mean, foreign minister, get to work. I mean, this is what, the foreign minister is all about. It's not just traveling to the United States, going to the United Nations and taking a 20, 30-person delegation. These are foreign minister.
I think we're going too far. As much. I mean, you got a brilliant point. Yeah, the issue here is what is causing the shortage of rice in Liberia right now. That's what we should look at. What is causing is the global market trade and trade on the global stage to be short. The shortage of that. What are some of these problems? So we can look domestically, but we also what I said is that the problem is
if we look at the problems. If we just look at the problems, if we look at the problems, can we advance solutions too?
Exactly. That's what. That's the way, and that's the way you can. And that's the way you advance. That's the way you advance solutions. If you look at the problem and understand the root cause of the problem. Now we have different times, different administration, a different season. We are here at this point right now. What the whole world, not just Liberia alone, has been affected vehemently. Now, We do not have the resource and the structure like other developed countries, like big economies like Europe and America, that they can sustain subsidizing these commodities so that people don't feel the burn. In as much as they are doing that, the people, we're still feeling it here. You go ask for bread, a bread needs to cost like $1 or whatever, now it's costing like $3 or more. But people are not complaining because the communication, the government is going to communicate some of these things to the public so that they understand what time are we, so that we all aware and prepared. Now, Liberia is unique to the same situation. We do not have the resource capacity financially and what have you. We do not have the infrastructure. These things that happen on the global stage happen abruptly. Now, what I got problem with the government is that even like the previous government, the communication disseminating to the public, making the public understand what is happening, what are the challenges they are faced with. They don't do that. Instead of the thing with the do that show signs of weakness. No, it's just being fair. It gives you more confidence, give you more strength that the people can understand and know how to tie the buckle with you.
For
right?
30 seconds, what's your solution for 30 seconds?
My solution, one of the wise decisions the government took was setting up this committee, because in as much as other commodities in our market has been affected, the most we can talk about as all Liberians is rice. It's our main staple. What is causing this? Now, like I just gave you guys the pros and the cons. The pro in this whole thing is the committee could have mitigate cohesively with a camaraderie means instead of bringing the public involved, the stakeholders involved, understanding also the domestic issue, the challenges we face domestically, because most of the things we're talking about, creating farms, growing this, growing crops, those are long-term fixes. It's not what we're facing right now. We're talking about immediate fixes. Now, the committee should not just be short-sighted on Liberia domestic issues. They should be able to look on the world stage, look up on the global stage to understand what are causing some of these shortages. Is it only affecting Liberia alone? Is it affecting other countries or what have you? Europe is in a serious and dire need of wheat. The breadbasket of Europe is Ukraine. They supply the most wheat to Ukraine. I mean to Europe. They're having serious, significant problems. The same as Liberia. Our staple is rice. Now, why are there such? Why are there? Look.
Yeah, we'll talk about the solution. That was 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's the longest 30 seconds I ever listened to.
I want to go to Mr.
The problem with the program is that
Mr. Sally was about to speak.
Everybody talk and have enough time.
Yeah, I have to leave. I'm sorry.
Mr. Greaves, that's the longest 30 seconds I ever listened to.
But I mean, the issues that are very intricate, and you have to break it down.
That's understandable. We are almost at the
I can point everything out there. There's no need of me being here because I can't deliberate anything in 30 seconds. It's not the issue is broadened. It's not just what we're talking about.
You laid that out previously very well about the domestic, the international. So I just want a quick 30 seconds.
You have to connect it. Then you put the power of the committee, what the committee should be doing, recommendations from this program. Look, we had a program here before we met with Giddings. We had a very interesting conversation with Giddings during the campaign time, the election period. And you know how many people called me and said, look, Tough Talking Thursday was one of the brilliant programs that had a real interesting exchange with anybody, even more than the confirmation hearing that was given Giddings. And because I know Giddings very well, we worked together, and I knew he was capable of undertaking the task. And that has caused this program to go far. So when we come here, we try to be critical. If you give me that 30 seconds, I can say anything whenever I talk more than minutes and stuff. Yeah,
thank you.
It's pressing issue. Go ahead,
Mr. Salif. We were concluding on this issue, so I just want a quick 30 seconds of the solution that you think will solve this. And yours is here. The committee is good. What they need to look at is recommendation and not policy issue, and I like that. Mr. Salif, your solution.
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
They don't have
nutrition. I like that nutrition Ethiopian model that Dr. Du was talking about. I wasn't aware of it. But I know when I worked for a major donor government, one area that they looked into, and I guess they still, do, is about nutrition, staple, alternatives and how to add values to some of the other secondary staple Liberian staples to really try to bring them up and address this rice problem. So maybe we just need to recondition our taste and our nutrition diet so that rice can be a crisis. Rice can be there as it is in other countries, but so too, should other types of consumables.
Thomas, your solution. I have one caller on the line, so quickly.
Yeah, so for me, from the PFM perspective, Liberia has been working on transitioning from this line item budgeting to program budgeting. I think this is something that can fall within that space. Let's have a program for producing rice in Liberia. And then once it is a kind of program budget, you force the institutions to be able to collaborate. It's a single program that is funded, and then the Ministry of Agriculture will feed into it, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, all of them. You tax them with that responsibility. The Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of Public Work, they will all have to work under that same program to be able to increase our production of rice, to reduce our importation of rice, even if not in the 1 year, 2 year, but let's say over a horizon of 3 years to see where we can get. But just to have a short-sighted and look at something under our feet, it doesn't solve the problem. And the last point I will make on this is that you are never going to have the government ministries in Monrovia to be able to look at internationally, to look upward when they have service delivery functions that are tied to their feet. The Ministry of Commerce should not be involved in rice inspection, turn it over to the counties. Let's devolve functions to the counties, and then we can look at big picture things in Monrovia, and then look internationally at what is happening to be able to solve our problems in the long run. But if you have everybody just approving procurement of scratch card, procurement of fuel to be going to the counties, they do this service delivery work, we will not be able to do long-term planning and implementation. Over.
Our colleague from Monrovia had to leave. Mr. Salif, you have a closing comment before you leave? I know in Monrovia is after what, 1? All right. While we wait for that, if he's available, let me bring on our only caller tonight. That's Trogon Bayo.
Thank you, Dennis. Good evening, everyone. I carefully listened to everyone and Honorable Greaves. Let me just say this, right? We all know the situation around the world right now, especially give example about the war in Ukraine and how the issue of the war in Gaza impacted shipping. Well, let me say this: the issue of rice is not 2024. It's not 2020 either. When I was just a little kid, I heard about the rice riot in Liberia in 1979. From 1979 up to today's day, we can't say, oh, the issue right now with shipping and war is impacting the country. I mean, of course, but that is not an excuse for us. The problem with Liberia is we have lazy leadership. I bet, watch my word, everyone is suggesting right now so that the government can come up with something that we can grow our own food. Let the importers announce that they got about 3-4 ships filled with rice arriving in Monrovia. You will not hear anything about that suggestion anymore, that proposal anymore.
True.
They will table it, they will do nothing, and then after a couple of years, we'll run out of rice again and say, oh, we got to grow our own rice. That's lazy leadership.
Thank you.
Lazy mentality. So we need to really step up. We can't put all the blame on government on the issue of rice. If government have put in place policies that stop Liberians from growing what they eat, then we can blame government for that. But government have not put in any policy in place that stop us from growing what we eat. Why can't the people go in the villages and farm? Everybody wants to live in Monrovia. A country can never function that way. You know, we have to step up. Everyone, we have to take a lead. It can't just be government. And Dr. Duque, glad to see you, man. We didn't see you for quite a while. It seemed that when the issue of the 100-day evaluation came about, you ran away from the panel. So after defending, but I'm sure on the campaign, you're now running away from defending his field policy and leadership right now. So I'm glad to see you back. We hope to see you every night.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Mr. Number, you
I
will
was
be
in
our last
Moravia. I
caller.
didn't run away. I was in Moravia.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Ja. And hey, guys, good evening. Great show again. As always, you did justice to the topics. Listen, I kind of partially agree with the previous caller. I think we also we're putting too much on the government. I think there is a lot that we should be doing, or we should begin to think about doing, to kind of sort of alleviate the burden on the government, especially those of us over here. And I know that several people have left the diaspora and gone to Liberia in hopes of setting up shop to do something, and it probably didn't work. But I don't think that is really enough for us to stop trying. You know, there are a lot of talented Liberians here in the diaspora, quite wealthy, and I think we should find a way, you know, to break, you know, this logjam that is making it so difficult for us to invest in Liberia. So I think we should spend some time on that too. And I just think there is a lot that we could be doing, but that we are not doing. And so I just wanted to kind of reshape the discussion and kind of, you know, impose a little paradigm shift on the way we've looked at how we all can help Liberia. Yes, the government saw this job. They were elected to do a job, and, you know, however they're doing it, yes, the people will judge them at the polls. But I think we should not continue to stand on the sideline and just, I don't want to say criticize, but there's something I think we should be able to do.
And what is it?
Well, I think it is. Because I didn't want it to seem like a shameless plug. So let me just say this. At Yola, we are trying to rally our people. We're hoping to build a consortium of Liberian professionals. Right now we're trying to commission a survey that will help us determine how many Liberian doctors do we have here in the diaspora, how many Liberian engineers, how many Liberian accountants, how many Liberian lawyers. We want to build these people into silos or into clusters that will help to advise the government on several ways in which we can improve the way our people's way of life. We think there's a lot of Liberians here who are willing to make a sacrifice or whatever it would take, with no anticipation of anything in return, but just to help the government, advise the government on health, advise the government on education, advise the government on job creation. So I think, I think we should give it a shot. But thank you very much for the time. Great show again, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Our time is up. We have 2 minutes to close, but we'll extend the time for us to have our closing comment. I don't want us to go beyond 2 hours. So we'll go around the room to close the show. We discussed the Rights Committee, the new appointments, mainly the Aide de Camp and yellow machines. You're closing.
All right. I think with regards to the yellow machine or green machine or whatever machine, we should go back and respect our laws. That's how you run a civilized country. Even if you have milk and honey to give to Liberia, gold and diamond to give to Liberia, follow the laws in order to bring that milk and honey, in order to bring that gold and diamond. I don't believe in rights committees. That was done by President Tubman in 1968. It's been more than 50 years. It failed in 1968. It failed under George Weah with a restabilization fund. And so going back to things that have failed is not the way to make progress. In order for the Liberia government to stabilize the rice situation, they will have to put some money into supply side economic policies. That is like helping the farmers to produce more or anything to do with production. And having some demand side policies. And that is like encouraging or let's say demanding that people who supply to government institutions supply Liberian produced rice, because that creates an incentive for there to be private sector development or investment in the sector. Rice is an economic problem, it's not a political problem. So if you just go set up some political talk shop, it's going to end in just political commentary. It's not going to solve the problem. You need a proper economic policy to address the rest issue. So I'd just like to close on that note.
Thank you. Honorable Graves, you're closing, sir.
I mean, on the underlying issues here, we're discussing the yellow machine I just heard about. I think the government should be able to properly disseminate information to communicate to the public, find a way to have people very well understanding the issues. What are they trying to do? What are the development packages and what have you? What are the things are intended for, so that people don't speculate or start making, filling the void with other issues. On the issue of Aide, I think that those are career posts. Those are posts that for a long-term longevity, like you have the swollen posts, like in areas of commissioning officers as well in government. So you can't just come here. I know as much as the government wants to help, the administration want to help other people, make sure they empower some of their foot soldiers and what have you. You have to understand that those posts are career posts. Those are people who have served those posts, are trained, and they have gotten the pedigree as well as the discipline to serve as Aide camp. They can have political alliances, but when they're on the job, it's non-political. Every one of us somewhere leaning somewhere. So those would be career posts that people can go in line, and people should be trained properly as they come in and outface those who are currently involved in holding the post. Back on the rights issue, we've had many issues in our country concerning rights, our means table. Most of them have been fake. I can tell you, 1990, what we all allude to, or we make reference to, not the 1970 arrest riot, 1980 or whatever, 79 riot, and then 1980. That was a political movement that was just brought into polarizing the society and creating this false pretense of rights being shortage. I mean, rights shortage in the market that led us to things that we never expected ourselves to be doing now, and that have grown over the period. That politicians have used this as a means of getting through. So every time you hear about rights, and the public have embraced this so much, so that we have just allowed this to be on the top of our heads. Now, this current administration did not create the problem of rice shortage in Liberia, or create the problem of rice scarcity, or not being our stable, or what have you, or not creating the sufficiency of rice as our stable. This administration has been there for less than a year. Now, what they're trying to do is trying to find a way. And I think the way that we go further is to understand the problem, because we can come with long-term fixes. We can talk about growing our own stable food. We can talk about doing all the suggestions that were made, which are salient, but we are looking at immediate effect. What is the situation right now that we're faced with? And if we fool ourselves and be blindsided to the real issues, we'll not get a fix. And that's why we all just grow polarized and just grow more grievances and blame the government. This situation is something that's affecting our global trade, that is affecting Liberia as a little struggling economy, and it only gets fixed when the committee is focused on and prioritize the agendas, not just look at Liberia, not just be short-sighted and look at the domestic affairs and what is happening in Liberia, but look out there, look on the world stage, what is really happening out there, so we have proper understanding. Next thing is, how do they communicate with the public, having the public informed. That's where we are. These are the situations we're faced with. These are the problem, the hurdles we're trying to overcome. Now, have that open link. Like I said, build camaraderie, build a cohesive form that the public is aware. The stakeholders are input, they're making input and making impact, and they are aware. The administration will be left to do their part as official government officials, not the committee. The committee will only be there as a brick wall to relieve the tension and mitigate the polarization of our society, and when as people come out to challenge these issues. So with that, the government should be on there should be firm on the time frame of how long the committee should last and what they expect of this committee in terms of recommendation and not policy, because the committee does not have the authority to make any policy but to make recommendation. Robust on consent, how long they take to make consent is not complacency, sit and just meeting, and the whole thing they just swallow a lot of resources and just sit there, and the next thing you know, they're time deprived. Also, impervious. They should not be impervious. They should be open, allowing the public to talk to them, to exchange with them, interchange with them, and express their own concerns and interests. So I think with this, for the immediate short phase, we can go on this, and then understanding the global issue, the world trade, the global agriculture export, who are responsible for all these things, how we can beat around, how we can link with smaller big countries that are making up, because the big countries are protecting themselves. They got a way of getting those things over the Black Sea, over the Red Sea. How Liberia can try to squeeze. We got relations with the US, we got relations with the EU. How can we build that relationship so that it help us?
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Dukley, you're closing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be back. Thanks to everyone for their good ideas, and I hope that Monrovia is at least somebody in Monrovia. They say sometimes you write or you talk, make sure you have one good listener somewhere. And I hope one good person is listening to all of these ideas and say, okay, this is a new government. Some mistakes were expected, some were unexpected because of, the experience of those who are now in power, but definitely there'll be mistakes. And then, I think on the rights issue, I think the institutions that or government should do their job, manage the crisis if there is one, and then the committee should look at the long term. And it should not just be ministers and then two other people from outside. You have to find intellectuals. Somebody said Morovia, Liberia problem is that all the intellectuals are in the US. So the only people who can sit and think about issues and discuss them without talking about salary, food, and tomorrow job, that they're all in the diaspora. Morovia, nobody got time for this kind of talk. I was there for a month. I never talked to nobody about anything except job. There's no intellectual discussion. There's no circle. There's no forum to discuss anything besides survival issues. Job, 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 money, car, scratch cars. And that's our biggest problem. Why the president would take somebody like David Vinton, who, I mean, he's good, but he was, he's done his time. A minor, yes. They're intelligent, but what is the new generation? What are the new thinkers? And that's the problem we have in Liberia. We don't have that class of thinkers. We don't have that class of people who can just sit and reflect on issues that are not attached to their daily bread. We need think tanks to think about these issues and propose to the government. We did this independently. We know this how it works. We read on it, this and that. And these are the ideas that we have. And then you push them forward. The government can take them and say, okay, minister, can you do this? We can do this, but we can't do that. But we don't have that capacity. We don't have people thinking in Liberia. We don't.
Thank you. Mr. Canning, you're closing.
Let me just pick up from where Dr. Drew stopped. I think the problem with the Liberian government is that it's not a good consumer of knowledge. Even if you go and put all your effort into thinking and do a policy piece of work, you carry to them, nobody has interest in it. Everybody is just busy with this wheeling and dealing. And so if a government cannot be a consumer of knowledge, how do you expect people to supply it? Even when international development agencies do these isolated assessments and do the policy intellectual work, people go to the where they are proposed to, they just go to the launching, they shake hand, they take pictures, and that's the end. They just drop it and move forward. So I think the government will have to change this approach to really be a government that can request knowledge. The rubber crisis is on now. Why don't you get? There are people in Liberia who can do this work. I mean, over the past 20 years, we've produced a lot of graduate students from top schools around here. Some of them are in Liberia, from Harvard, from Cornell, and other places. But nobody has their time because they did not wear T-shirt to campaign for this government or that government. Nobody has their time. They have their bags. They are moving around Monrovia. So I think the point is not that we don't have. The point is that we are not demanding quality. Some of them are in the diaspora. Can we get them to be able to go back? Can we find a way for them to be able to help? But I think the bigger problem we have is that the political class uh, is sometimes resistant to the intellectual class. And because we don't want to get involved in what they are doing and the way they run their affairs, people just sit quiet and nobody gets involved. And we just continue to ride on this path. But I mean, in conclusion, on the rice issue, I just hope that this committee will not be one of those other committees that we have seen in the past that really don't do anything. And after 3 months, we won't hear from them. On the issue of the appointment of the AD camps, like I said, we should continue to review our bureaucracy and review our institutional framework. If we don't need them, we can get rid of them through amendments. And on the yellow machine issue, the government should be able to follow all of our PFM processes that are on the book. If this is going to happen, let it happen the right way. But like I said from the beginning, that is building the foundation for actually growing the Liberian economy if we invest in growth and invest in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. And talking about consumption of information, I'll tell you a quick story. We had a gentleman from one of those ministries. At the time, we're doing a series on getting to know your ministry. So we call you, ask you about your ministry, what it's about, what you're doing there, and everything. And the gentleman, we had this 3 years ago. It was yesterday that he told and Sony CSA, the interview I had on Focus on Liberia changed the life of my ministry because that interview went wide into the NGO communities and people donated money to us based on the interview. But this man is talking about this 3 years later and he never looked back. Or he did not come for another interview so we can explore more. So when you were talking about the consumption of information, it's like what we do, people, they will benefit, they will enjoy it, it will expose, they will talk about something, but beyond that, it's like I don't need this anymore. Mr.
And
Sharif.
Dennis, one second. I think our
Transactional.
one second, just 30 seconds. I think our ministries and agencies also need to even get themselves involved in the knowledge production. Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Commerce. What is the research that they are doing? They themselves should do research.
The World Bank will tell the finance ministry your country is poor. And then and the finance minister will tell us, by World Bank say you're poor.
Oh, you live on less than $1 a day. If I'm in Dudwakan and what I spent in Dudwakan, if I go for leisure in the Mani River, that is $200. If I get a catfish from River Dubai, that's $300. So how you tell me I'm living on less than $1 a day?
The World Bank said it because you don't do research, so people tell you who you are.
Yeah, so it's absolutely correct. I mean, the governments, successive governments, have not been in the business of acquiring knowledge, or even if they acquire the knowledge, they don't know what to do with it, or they don't want to do anything with it. There is this tendency of the attack in some previous administration. There was even an attack on intellectuals. I mean, those guys know plenty of book. They think they know plenty of book. That was the thing there. So you cannot have that and have development. So all of the things that we're talking now, I mean, we can talk this from now to the day of judgment, and if no one is paying attention to this, That's why we elect public officials, because they can drive the agenda. Someone can sit there and look at this and say, you know, I watched this, I saw this somewhere, I read something somewhere, so I want to follow up on this. Who is there following up on anything? There is no, you know, I guess, you know, a lot of people are not inquisitive to you know, to understand these things. You know, if they do, we don't see a lot of it. And so that's where it's at. And you know, there have been people who written policy papers, and most have grown on some of these policy papers, and nothing has happened. There's been commissions and commissions that have been formed, established in the past, and nothing has come of it. So in extraordinary times, you need to do extraordinary things. That's what I'll continue to say. And that's one of the only ways, one of the prescriptions to the development of Liberia. We don't need to take a minimalist term as far as, you know, setting up committees. You know, why do you need a committee when you already have the Ministry of Agriculture sitting in Monrovia, you know, riding around in flashy cars? Okay, you know, using government vehicles, gasoline. You know, we're paying for their houses, we're paying for their telephone bills. Why do you need these ministries sitting out there doing absolutely nothing? And then you're going to form another commission, another bureaucracy, and pay these people too. Vinter, like Dr. Douglas said, Vinter, I thought, you know, I never knew Vinter was still around. And now here he surfaces again, you know, in this committee. So who knows who's the next person that's going to surface in the next committee? So, you know, look, let me go to the these machines, right? Because that's the point. That's where I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about that. You know, the fact that this has even been conceived by this administration. The administration ran on this, and they promised to fix these roads. And the fact that they've not forgotten, this is commendable. This is tremendous. I mean, you see people, you know, the road to Zwedru now, you know, cars are flying through this. It's a lot easier now with ease. So this is tremendous. And all of the things we talk about agriculture and whatnot, you cannot have this a level of production that you need to feed the country if you have bad roads. You know, if you don't have any roads for farmers to bring their, you know, their produce to the nearest market, you know, because, you know, we have all these markets, you know, in towns that are situated on the main road. So if you don't have farmers can bring their produce to the main road, then, you know, you're not going to be able to have the level of food production that we need to feed the Liberian people. Look, we're a long, long, long way away. I mean, a country 176 years old can't feed itself. And we just continue to talk. We just continue to form committees and committees and committees. I mean, we have to move beyond that. We have to do something extraordinary. I'm hoping that the administration does something extraordinary, as they're doing something extraordinary now with the Yellow Machine project. So hopefully that
stop selling that yellow machine in nowhere. The
and
minister
so,
said there's no yellow machine.
Excuse me, Doctor. Excuse me. So, you know, I believe what the minister said. I believe what Mamaka said. I think Mamaka was up to something. I don't believe Pierre, you know, they're fighting for power, but we can talk about this another time. And, you know, time will tell, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy for people in the rural areas and for the Liberian people as a whole.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for tonight. I want to thank our viewers for watching. Even those who will watch later, always focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and God bless you.
Thank you.
We are Liberians.